Today, we are going to be looking at some normal photos with haunting, disturbing backstories. Some of these photos were taken moments before disaster occurred and can be very dark and gruesome. You have been warned. Starting off this countdown, we have Joseph Avery. In 1853, Joseph Avery went rafting on the Niagara River with his two friends. However, during this trip, the boat flipped. The current had been much stronger than anticipated. Sadly, his two friends drowned, but Avery was a very strong swimmer. So he managed to get a hold of a log that was wedged between two rocks. Avery was stuck holding that log for 18 hours. It's because initially no one could hear his screams for help. And when people did see him there, it took a while before a rescue could actually happen. This photo was taken by a bystander. You can see Avery holding onto the log for his life because if he let go, he would die. Unfortunately, those 18 hours were for nothing. When he got on the rescue boat, it capsized and Avery was swept over the falls. Imagine that. Holding on to something for 18 hours, and when you finally get rescued and think you're safe, the boat capsizes and you die. And at number 9, we have the drowning. On October 22nd of 2003, Tina Watson and her husband, David Gabriel, went out scuba diving on their honeymoon. They had just been married 11 days earlier, and scuba diving was part of their honeymoon itinerary. This photo was taken on that scuba diving excursion. Now, if you look right at the back, you can see a diver laying on the sea floor. That is Tina Watson. A few minutes before this photo was taken, it's believed her husband turned off her air supply and held her underwater until she drowned. He then swam to the surface and was like, "Oh no, my wife, help her." This photo was captured accidentally, and you can see some divers going to help her. Some say he held her underwater until she drowned. Others say he saw her struggling as a new scuba diver and just left her there to die on her own. Either way, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and this was the last photo ever taken of her. Coming in at number 8, we have the Panama Hikers. Now, this case has never sat right with me. It is so... Let me just get into it, but I could do a whole other video on just this case. This is a photo of two young Dutch females that saved up to take a trip to Panama. They were so excited for this, except while on a hike in the Panamanian jungle, the two disappeared. It wasn't until months later that their bodies were eventually found, but it's still unclear how they died. The last photos taken of them were on April 1st of 2014, the day that they went on the hike. And you could see that they were taking selfies and they were so excited to be on this hike. These photos were found on their camera, which was found in a backpack along the banks of a river. The camera also contained other pictures, like of the jungle, and so they think that they were using the camera and the flash to take photos as their source of light. But then there's other photos that showed the back of Chris's head that was bleeding. This case just goes on and it's absolutely crazy. Like, one of their foots was found in a boot, just detached from the body. They don't know how they got lost, but they were with a dog and the dog ran back to the village and they just were never found. Like, I don't know. This case creeps me out, and it's so sad. Moving on to number 7, we have Gary Slock. This selfie is of Gary Slock and his mother aboard their flight. Little did they know the horrors that were gonna wait for them on this flight. They were both excited for their vacation to Malaysia. The trip was designed for single parents and their children. Sadly, 3 hours after this photo was taken, a missile shot down the plane as it flew over eastern Ukraine. There were no survivors. What's sad is that the two were so excited for their trip and they called it their dream holiday. This breaks my heart. And at number 6, we have Nick and Jack Savage. On June 14th of 2015, mother Becky Savage lost not one, but 2 of her sons. A pain I can't even begin to imagine. So on that morning, she was picking up laundry from her son Jack's room when she found him unresponsive. The night before, it was their graduation party and they were hanging out with their friends. When she checked his pulse and found he didn't have one, she started CPR immediately. However, it was too late. He had passed away from an accidental overdose of oxycodone and alcohol. To her horror, her other son was in the basement and passed away the same way. This is the last photo that they ever took. It was the night of the graduation party, just hours before their accidental overdose. And at number 5, we have David Johnston. David Johnston was a 31-year-old volcanologist that fell victim to a volcano explosion on May 18th of 1980. 13 hours before he was killed, this was the last photo taken of him. And that was the very spot that he lost his life. So on that day, it was Johnston's shift to keep an eye on Mount St. Helen, the mountain where the explosion occurred. He was 6 miles from the volcano. That morning, the eruption came very fast and without warning. As it was erupting, he signaled to his base. Shortly after he radioed them, he was killed. Sadly, his body parts were never found, and all that was left were remnants of his trailer. It breaks my heart seeing this photo because look how happy he was. He was very unknowing of what was about to happen to him. And at number 4, we have the Dangerous Selfie. Back in March of 2017, best friend Nitzia Mendoza Coral and Clarissa Morquocho Miranda were taking selfies on an airstrip when they were hit and killed by an oncoming plane. The two were standing in the back of a van when this happened, but they were warned not to do so. They took this photo, and moments later, they were struck and killed by the plane. They passed away instantly. And at number 3, we have the bride-to-be. This photo was taken in June of 2014. It features bride-to-be Colette Marino and her best friend Ashley M. Theobald. They were both on their way to Colette's bachelorette party. You can tell by this selfie just how excited the two are. But sadly, minutes after this photo was taken, they got into a deadly car crash. Ashley survived, but Colette didn't. So apparently what happened is that the two were driving and there was a big truck in front of them. The truck's fumes were so bad that it was affecting Colette's asthma, and she started having a really bad coughing fit. So as a result, Ashley decided to pass the truck and get in front of it. So she pulled into the other lane and sped up to pass it. But seconds later, a car emerged up a slight hill and they crashed head on. After the incident, Colette passed away from the injuries. It's crazy how fast your life can change. They're on their way to a bachelorette party and next thing you know, they're in the hospital. And at number 2, we have the lightning strike. This photo features 2 brothers, Michael on the right and Sean McQuilkin on the left. This photo was taken just before a bolt of lightning struck Sean. So the two were in Sequoia National Park, and the photo was supposed to be just a goofy photo. Your hair typically stands up when lightning is about to strike. Little did they know that the lightning was about to strike them. Now, Sean didn't actually pass away from the lightning strike. In fact, he was knocked unconscious and suffered terrible 3rd-degree burns. Later, he took his own life, and this was one of the last photos ever taken of him. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the last free dive. Nicholas Mavoli was known as a daredevil free diver. In May of 2013, he became the first American man to dive down to 100 meters with a single breath. In November of 2013, he attempted to break another record. He wanted to reach 236 feet with 1 breath of oxygen and without the assistance of flippers. These photos were taken right after his dive. He surfaced, he gave the okay sign, but was unable to speak and then passed out. After that, he never regained consciousness. He passed away from pulmonary edema. Look at these photos taken of him. He looked absolutely terrified. You can tell he was in severe shock and pain. Alright folks, that's all for today's video. I know it's a very heavy video, very disturbing, but if you want part 2, let me know in the comments below. I can do that for you. And like I say, while you're down there, smash that like button, obviously subscribe to my channel. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan. Stick around for some bloopers to try and lighten the mood, and now, I'll show you when I show you. Bye. In 1853, 1853? That doesn't... Joseph Avery. There's no way. It's from 1983. Oh, 1853. Bro, they had cameras back then? Okay, I guess so. They had just been married 11 days earlier. Ooh, earlier. Now, if you look in the... So, David Johnston was a 31-year-old volcanologist? Dude that studied volcanoes. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the last free